System riding to the core. Yeah. Reppin' inner city left.
This is the Inner City Left broadcast. Today is Tuesday, July 14th. I'm Amin Team K alongside Amoja Lil Tanky Sumler. Amoja, hello. It's going up on a Tuesday. I love McConan. How are you doing this Tuesday?
It's going down on a Tuesday.
Someone
is what
went
it sounds
down.
Like.
Someone went down. And we didn't mention it, but we should mention it to open it up. Lindsay, True American, Graham.
I'm
South
not for
Carolina
you. I'm
legend.
for Israel. I'm for Israel till I die.
Looks like he's now finally not with Israel. Didn't make it, man. A lot of rumors we won't get into, but I think it would be I would be remiss not to mention it. As we can dive into it on. Let's dive into it. What do you think? There's some things that are being said. There's some things that are happening. Let's go out. Let's see what Donnie's talking about. You know, he's always a smart guy, man. He's always saying things that are going to de-escalate the situation.
That's true. I think about him as an implacable force for calm in the world.
Yeah, that's why you got an MFA, man. It's good words. Let's see what he has to say.
And we're not going to put it up. Yeah, I want to be reimbursed because we're protecting a very rich portion of the world. We're spending money. And so what we've done is we are going to be reimbursed for protection. We're protecting by the countries that we're helping. For instance, you look at the 5 countries. You have Saudi Arabia, you have UAE, you have Qatar, or Qatar as I always say, you have Qatar, Bahrain, and by the way, you have others. You have Kuwait, and you have others, and they will do very well. But we think it's appropriate that we don't need them. You know, we have more oil than any other country in the world. When you add Venezuela, which has been amazing, which has tremendous amounts of oil that we control.
So that's Donald Trump talking about putting a tax or a toll on the Strait of Hormuz, which obviously is already ridiculous enough. Can't happen. And I'm going to let you go, and I want to talk more in general, broadly about this. But the Secretary of State, that would be Marco Rubio, just last week, my good friend, Lil Tanky, he had this to say just last week.
Can they guarantee navigation, freedom of navigation in the state?
Well, that's the law. It's an international waterway. No country is allowed to charge tolls or fees on an international waterway. That's existing international law. That's the way it is in international waterways all over the world, and that's the way we expect it'll be here. So I don't think we have anybody to convince around here in that regard. I think all the countries in this region would agree with us.
Okay, so you go from the straits are ours, the straits are closed. We are now enforcing the blockade of the Strait of Hormuz, to now we are going to toll the Strait of Hormuz, even though Marco Rubio said that would be against international law. And we're going to get more into Marco Rubio later. I just want to talk again about the Strait of Hormuz, and we can get further deep into it. What is your understanding of what's happening, and what is your response to
the straits
Donnie
are closed.
and Marco?
The straits are closed. Look, we've been saying incessantly on Inner City Left, which, by the way, for those of y'all that are watching, thank you so much. I know how hard it is to get us to pop up in the algorithm. If for some miracle you're here on accident, please please subscribe, because that's the only way you will be getting Inner City Left. They don't want you to really have leftist geopolitics. Back to it, right? This is what they've been doing all along. So what's fascinating to me is, so there are the two positions, right? There's international law that says that international waters should be transited, freedom of navigation. Okay, so like most international treaties, that is not something that every country in the world has signed up to. So it is a set of laws that a lot of countries use. Iran is not one of the countries that ever signed up for that law. I don't believe that Oman is either, and those are the only two countries whose territorial waters are really encompassed by the Straits of Hormuz. There's an island in Iran called Hormuz. Okay, so like, but that brings us to the next question, and that is what the definition of international waterways are. And as we've talked about consistently on Inner City Left, this has not been resolved, right? But the one thing that we can be certain of is that does not meet the definition of international waterways, right? There's just not enough land in the Straits of Hormuz between Oman's territorial waters and Iran's territorial waters. So, as far as the law of the sea goes, it technically does not come into play, right? So then you have these two things that are happening that seem to contradict themselves but aren't, right? So Marco Rubio gives you a law for something that is not relevant. It's a true law, but not everybody practices it, and it's actually not relevant to this particular waterway. But then also Donald Trump, who just pulls the shade away, who understands this is not an international waterway. And so, because it's territorial waters, we will claim these territories for ourselves, right? He's saying he's going to be the guardian of the Hormuz Straits. One little problem, the country of Iran, they still exist. And it would be quite a treasure that would be paid in gold and blood. Because that would be, amphibious landings are one of the most demanding disciplines to pull off in warfare. Urban warfare is even more complicated, and that's what awaits, right? Like, first you have to land, right? Then from there, after you do this incredible, difficult military maneuver of landing, you know, hundreds of thousands of troops under fire, under artillery fire, under mortar fire, under drones, you know what I'm saying? Probably under close air fire. Like, that's a lot of things to have to overcome. And the only thing that would be waiting for you after that is to go into the actual cities and fight. Um, and everyone thinks like, oh, this was so easy to do in Iraq. So first off, no, it wasn't. Um, it was easy to defeat the official Iraqi army, but that war raged on for years. It didn't go away. There was resistance for years. And you're talking about a country with a fraction of the resources and a fraction of the people of Iran. Iran is an order of magnitude larger than Iraq, right? So when he's talking about taking over the Straits of Hormuz, that's what he's talking about. And the scuttlebutt in the city is that's what the whole Thursday talk is going to be. The president is going to address everybody. And, the rumor around town is it's going to be an official declaration of war, which will be fascinating because I don't think we've had one of those since Iraq, right? I think Iraq, George Bush went to the Congress, everybody voted. Hillary Clinton was like, yeah, let's go do it, you know. Famously, Barack Obama didn't because he was the plant to be like, I didn't do it. But it'll be interesting to see who votes this time and who doesn't vote for it. And hold all of these politicians to the fire. When your Congress people vote for this war, remember that. Because these are resources that are going to be taken away from any American project, whatever you're into. Maybe you're a conservative, and what matters the most to you is the national forestry, right? And making sure that, conservation keeps the bighorn sheep. Less money for that, okay? Maybe you're a liberal and you want your favorite HBCU to get more money, right? All of that. This war taps all of those pockets. And there's already talk that Department of Defense is wanting to double their budget, right? Which is now $1 trillion for the first time ever. Like, we're talking about numbers that are no longer realistic numbers as far as like what an economy can support and provide. So these are important times. These are places that most people don't know where they are, and they wonder, why is Inner City Left always talking about this, right? These are things that will affect the world that we live in a radical way, in ways much faster than you think.
Yeah, and it's interesting because Mike Johnson came out today and he said, they're getting this extra 350 billion in the spending bill or whatever it is. And he also was like, but we're already the best fighting force in the world, like by far. So they're already the best fighting force in the world by far, but they still need to double their military budget. So that should, I mean, again, I don't know where you are as a listener in terms of military spending, but something is fishy. Something doesn't feel right. And that is, I think you're looking at Ukraine, spent a lot of reserves out there in Ukraine, giving them everything that they want, not everything that they wanted, but a lot of what they wanted. You're, of course, supporting Israel and their war on the entire region. Also, their war on Iran, you have to put it right with them as well. And, you're missing more and more of your ability to maintain hegemony in all of these regions. You hear Trump over and over again talking about Venezuela. He obviously loves that victory. And this one is just kind of gotten away from him. He can't, like you said, he can't send troops. It's not really possible. I don't think, I mean, of course it is possible, but I just wonder what the political backlash would be. And obviously they're hiding the amount of military personnel that have been, either missing or killed in action. Not to mention this commander or whatever it was that said that he basically abandoned his team out there, his squad out there. So I think that not only are they dealing with that, they're going to be dealing with sort of the thoughts and the feelings and the opinions of these people that are in high positions in the U.S. military, because it does look like if troops are going to go there, it's just a meat grinder, right? I mean, most of those people are going to die, and that's not something that I think most soldiers want to deal with, and I don't think that's something American people want to see.
And to your point, right, I think it goes back to how sloppily we play empire sometimes, mostly because the key thing is, as an American, to never acknowledge that it is an empire, right? Whereas the Spanish had no such delusions, the Romans had no such delusions. The conquistadors are going to conquer the new world for God, gold, and glory. When Trump is talking about a 20% surcharge on any trade that's coming out of the Strait of Hormuz, who does that go to? Is that going to the soldiers that enlist? Is it going to the American citizens? No. It's going to his technocrat buddies, his donors, and himself, right? So these are the things, again, where we are expected to put up all of the sacrifice, and this is where I really have to poo-poo people like Clint Smith. They go out and put these articles like, oh, look at what Pete Hegseth is doing. It's making it hard for what minorities want to rise through society, through the military. Because this is what it is. This is going to countries like Iran that are no threat to the United States as far as the homeland, right? Iran has no capacity to commit violence on the act of the American soil. And so for me, in my simple mind, that makes them not a threat to me. Interests are commercial interests. Commercial interests are not national security interest. And the fact that they've become so entangled now that they're completely inextricably linked, that's a problem. Americans are being asked to die for something where they don't understand even what the danger is, and they know that people are going to get rich in this war, and no matter who that is, it will never be them. The best a soldier can hope for is to, really stand out and maybe get noticed by one of these, mercenary companies, and then get a little bit more money, or maybe get noticed by some company like Raytheon and become a lobbyist for them, right? But there's no path to God, gold, and glory as a soldier, but all of the risk remains. And this is the risk that Trump is seemingly dangling in front of the people at a time when his approval ratings are at all-time lows, when the American feelings about this war are incredibly ambivalent at best, up to downright hostile towards this war, and people don't understand it because his core demographic, the people that voted for him, a good percentage of them can always say, no matter what else they say about me, I voted for him because he told me no new wars, and here we are, right? So
yeah, well, the war is just not with America. I mean, it's a whole regional affair. So I wanted to go to this if we can. Let's get Marco out the way. Saudi-led forces bomb Yemen's Sana'a airport, reigniting war with the Houthis. Yemen's Houthis, officially known as Ansarallah, vowed to respond and said de-escalation is over. Saudi-led forces bombed the international airport in Sana'a, Yemen on Monday. We already read that. The attack was claimed by which has been in the state of ceasefire that has been held relatively well since 2012. So this is an escalation now, 4 years since attack was claimed by Yemen's so-called internationally recognized government, which is based in Saudi Arabia and doesn't have an air force of its own, meaning the strikes were almost certainly launched by Saudi Arabia. So you have sort of that Lebanese fake government in Yemen trying to say that the Yemenis bombed it themselves, but we do know this was Saudi and Yemen. Yemen had one of the worst, if not the worst, humanitarian crisis at the time. Tanky, I don't know if you remember that. It was a huge starvation.
Yeah, it was right before the onset of the COVID epidemic. This was like 2018, 2019. Yep.
So this is an escalation now. You're seeing more, obviously, Kuwait, Bahrain also have been continually hit by Iran in response to, like, we haven't even mentioned this, but the bombing that's happening from the United States on Iran right now as well, hitting civilian targets. Again, this is what the United States does. This isn't just bluster. I mean, people are dying in Iran, not to mention the general terror it is to live under the bombing of Israel in the United States. So you have now Saudi Arabia, they're back involved with Yemen. What does this mean? And, just kind of what are your thoughts on this?
So I read the most interesting thing in an article earlier on, it was Al Mayadeen, and it says that the Saudis are reopening conversations with the Americans about what normalization with Israel would look like. Now, this was fascinating to me. This was absolutely fascinating because we have to remember less than a week ago, all of these people were piously saying their goodbyes to the grand Ayatollah, as the Iranians were reading them scripture from the Quran, right? And according to what the article said was no longer is Palestine the deal breaker. It's just that Benjamin Netanyahu has to go. What was that? And Smotrich, right? And that the current measures in the West Bank are reversed. So essentially, they're sacrificing Gaza, right? And they're saying we will normalize with Israel now, so long as you get rid of Smotrich, get rid of Bibi, and preserve what's left of the West Bank, right? Which is not a whole lot, but it still allows them to have the delusion of saying they're supporting the Palestinians. Now, without making overtly, explicitly a condition for normalization with Israel, the recognition of a Palestinian state, this is a huge, huge signal shift away from the position that they've had essentially the entire existence of this country, right? So this is going to be a huge thing, and if that's what's happening, then it really is. The full-fledged regional war is about to happen. It's going to be a lot worse than Iran versus the United States, or even Iran versus the United States and Israel. This is going to be the Iranian axis versus the Western axis. So that's a regional multi-country war with two countries on the wings, right? Turkey is in reserves, but a full NATO partner. Egypt, an incredibly large army with a lot of Western tech, a lot of Chinese tech out and on the wings. But you're talking about everything in the Levantine kind of Middle East, everything else involved. Kuwait with the Israelis, with the Syrians, with the Saudis, with Qatar, with Bahrain, with UAE, against Iraq, against Iran, against the irregular forces that remain in Lebanon, and against Ansarallah in Yemen. And that's going to be ugly Because the one thing you can count on in this situation is complete oil destabilization. And that's to say nothing of loss of life in one of the oldest areas on the planet as far as human culture is concerned. And you're talking about cultures that don't respect nothing. Even the Nazis didn't bomb Stonehenge, right? I have to say these things when you think about the ways that the Israelis are willing to conduct battle. They don't care that this is some historical register, the oldest church, the oldest Christian church. They don't care if this is the birthplace of, any other religion. They
Yeah.
will
You
destroy
don't have to look
all
any
of.
further than Alaska Mosque.
There it is. There it is. And so that's what you're looking at, right? You're talking about a Sunni alliance, and I say that only in terms of organization, right? But the fact of the matter is, this is a religious. These are people that are coming from Sunni majority countries, but the leaders of these countries are essentially a religious, and you can argue that that started with Saddam. And it just kind of, there were no super religious leaders. That was the original protestation, right, of Osama bin Laden and his whole Al Qaeda, right, was to make these guys religious again, whereas before then, the pan Arabs, it was really about strength through industrialization, through commercial output, selling this oil and using that to modernize our armies. There wasn't a whole lot of and we will do this with the Quran beating, but right, that wasn't the pan Arab way, right? And so the entire influx of the Sunni terrorists, right? The ISIS, the Al Qaeda, all of those organizations, it was meant to ostensibly punish the greed of the people that had lost their ways, right, by becoming too Western. But now, what you have left are those countries that survived that, right? Ostensibly all Sunni majority countries, but with leaders that are not religious in the least. You could argue that the Iranians are much more pious, at least as far as their beliefs go. But in the West, again, that's played as a negative. Oh, they're crazy Shia. You can't deal with them. You can't
You've been
reason with
hearing
them.
Trump use that rhetoric too. They're
Yeah.
crazy. They're stone cold crazy. They're, all those kind. You can't deal with them. Bloodthirsty. I mean, that's the type of language that they use. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I didn't know he was done there. Let me move on to something else. As we've been talking about this a little bit, the ICC, man, it used to be a place where you could say, hey, I don't remember if they are the ones that got that had the arrest warrant for Putin, but they have, so they have the arrest warrant for Putin, any African, quote unquote African warlord, usually backed by the West. That was no problems when the ICC was out here doing the West bidding, but I think unfortunately for their organization to look legitimate, just like the UN, they have to call out Israel, and that's where you see these arrest warrants for um, Benjamin Netanyahu and sort of the rest of that high profile right wing Israeli government. But it's interesting because you heard you mentioned actually that Smotrich and Netanyahu is who they want to see out before they can move on. And really, that's the Democrat position as well. That all the Democrats are asking for is a removal of Netanyahu and Smotrich, is so interesting. Or maybe Ben Gvir. Again, a lot of those right-wing guys up there, even though they really won't have much of a impact in Gaza and the West Bank. But the ICC, obviously, bringing charges to Netanyahu makes Israel look bad on the international stage. The UN has also at times been, condemning this and, calling it a G-side, which everyone who has a pair of eyes knows that it is.
I think it's interesting to your point, right? Because if this is the new position from the Saudi government, what it shows is a remarkable lack of insight and just not even a realistic pragmatism. Because by making Smotrich, right, and by making, Bibi Netanyahu the face of Greater Israel, the Greater Israel movement. The assumption is if we get rid of these guys, that these are the architects of Greater Israel, and that will die. But they're already doing the patches of that on some of the military outfits. Like, Bibi Netanyahu is not why this is happening in Israel. Smotrich is not why. They're not like aberrations or something that is a further, like some kind of, what do you call it? Something that is a deviation from the norm. They're not. They're just the loudest voices for it. They're the ones that have campaigned on it. But everyone believes this. And so if your argument is trying to subtly suggest to the Americans, we'll recognize the Israelis at these current boundaries, right? To stop this expansionism from going any further. We'll recognize them right here. It fails to understand the instinct of the Western settler colonial.
Yeah, well, it
All
doesn't
this,
matter what's in
yeah,
there. Like, I
right.
mean, it doesn't matter what they put in there. They could be like, oh, I want Netanyahu gone. Well, that's not going to happen. So it doesn't really matter. I mean, ultimately, and that's sort of what I'm getting with here. So Marco Rubio, we already mentioned him, but we need to mention him again because he's got his hands in every little pot everywhere. He came out last week. I'm gonna just play it. I'm just gonna play. This was last week. This is Marco Rubio talking about the ICC.
50 years, Americans have governed ourselves as a free and sovereign people. We choose our own leaders, we determine our own laws, and when we're accused of a crime, we stand for judgment before a jury of our own peers. This is the essential and indispensable feature of our form of government. It is the foundation of our shared way of life. But today, powerful people in faraway places want to take that away from us.
I just want to stop it right there real quick. I mean, what kind of language is that? I usually just let the video play, but but today powerful people
Want to take it away from us.
from far away places wanted to, what kind of language is that?
It's xenophobic by nature, right? But again, right, to your point about they never had a problem with the ICC when they were after Putin. Lindsey Graham famously said
R.I.P.
that
man, R.I.P.
they exist to go after these African tin pots, right? That's what he said, right? So what we're talking about is a people that have made their whole careers on being tough on crime now being upset that the world sees them as criminals and
Yeah.
and choosing to get away with the court.
Imagine thinking you're more that they're more powerful than the United States, which again, Mike Johnson just said that they're by and large the most powerful military in the world, but somehow the ICC is trying to take something away from the Americans. That seems impossible, especially because
Only
they don't
the
have an
ability to
army.
do war crimes. You know what I'm saying? Like that's the only thing. They're not like don't do free speech. The American government is doing that. The EU is doing that. They're not saying any of those things. They're saying don't drop white phosphorus on places where human beings live. Little bitty fuddy duddy rules like that. Don't shoot children in the head as target practice. And they don't have the right to say that. And so I say we defund them.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
people forget there actually is an invade the Hague kind of playbook like that exists. There are plans, right, drawn up plans that exist in the unlikely event that any American that they did not wish, right, to be taken by the Hague. So these plans exist to extradite those people by force if need be. But again, the interesting thing is it's not Americans that are even being brought up in the ICC right now. These are Israelis. So why is the Secretary of State of the United States going through such length to act as if this is happening to ordinary Americans? I mean, these are not Americans. Technically, I think Bibi Netanyahu is still an American citizen, as complicated as that is. And so I guess
He
that
was
would be
raised in
one,
Philly suburbs.
right? I don't know if he has given up his American citizenship. So I don't know. I'll have to check on that. But if that is that The implications are astounding. And that's all I can say on
All
that.
right, I'm just gonna keep the video rolling.
To take that away from us. They believe that they should be in charge of your laws, of your country, your life, and they don't care whether or not you agree. Halfway across the world, there's an institution that calls itself the International Criminal Court. Maybe you've heard of it, maybe you haven't. But chances are you don't know the names of its judges, of its prosecutors, or its president.
How many judges do you think the average American knows in general? Do you think the average American could name all the Supreme Court justices?
I
or
honestly
maybe
was just going to
5?
say that I don't think the average American can name all 9 of the Supreme Court justices. And if you
I
take it
definitely
away
can't name all 9.
from the Supreme Court, it's going to get even harder than that. Like if you're just talking about like, appellate judges and whatnot, like some federal judge, some federal prosecutor, like these aren't
Their
the
names
kind of
are knowable. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
it's not like it's like they're hidden behind a clandestine,
right.
smoke screen. No, you can look up the names right now. And I just thought that was crazy.
I just find it interesting how America's sovereignty extends to everything, right? But no one else gets to have sovereignty. Like Iran doesn't get to have any sovereignty about what could and could not go through their territorial waters, as recognized by the United States, as recognized by the United Nations, as recognized. Like, it's not like they have like disputed land like with the Russians and the Ukrainians, right? Like there is no dispute over what is Iranian territorial waters and what is not, right? But it would be, I mean, again, there are places that Putin cannot fly because the ICC has a warrant on him. And now that these same standards are being applied to people that the West has empowered, that the West continues to empower, right? Now all of a sudden the ICC is this kangaroo court. They're filled with boogeymen and secret society people that no one has ever seen. When, to your point, you can actually look at this stuff. Like this stuff is on C-SPAN. You can watch these cases. I've certainly, and I know that you have as well, watched the case that's been presented against Israel. And what's funny to me is they're trying to act like these are not very Western institutions. This is in The Hague. This is in Europe. This isn't like in Beijing, and all of these guys come out, even the African judges come out with the big, long, powdered wigs. It's embarrassing how European this institution is, and yet the American Secretary of State is trying to act like, it is some weird cultural practice that no one in the West has ever heard of, and they're following these laws that no one has ever voted on. It's fascinating.
Yeah, let's get through this video, and then we'll keep talking.
President. And you shouldn't have to. But as we speak, the ICC and its friends are waging a war against our country, not with bullets or missiles, but with statutes and compacts and the force of so-called international law. When the ICC was born 24 years ago, they told us that it was merely a narrow backstop, a global court that would step in to prosecute only the gravest offenses,
like
things like genocide and war crimes, and only when a nation's courts were unable to prosecute them on their own. But the truth is, it was something far more radical and extreme. It was a global tribunal staffed by unelected globalist bureaucrats who claim their power is almost unlimited. The danger of this global court has only continued to grow. Today, it threatens every aspect of our political and legal system.
How?
Border Patrol agents removing violent criminals from our country. American Marines risking their lives to defend our homeland. Prosecutors working to dismantle terrorist plots to attack and kill Americans. If we stand idle, all of them would be at the mercy of foreign judges thousands of miles away, facing the constant risk of prosecution and even imprisonment for the so-called crime of defending their own country. The American people never agreed to any of this, and they never will. Read the words of our Declaration of Independence. We fought a revolution against a foreign power, transporting us beyond seas to be tried for pretended offenses. Independence is our birthright. We will never let foreign bureaucrats take that away from us. This administration will not sit by as the ICC and its allies seek to threaten our people. If they believe they can deprive us of our sovereignty, we will teach them the full meaning of American resolve.
All right. Anything else you have to say about that little speech?
Hey, it is what it is. We're going to see what it is.
Max
Either there
Holloway.
is international law or it's not international law. The first clip we opened with from the Secretary of State was all about international law. But as soon as the international law was not the laws that the Americans wanted to be international, now it's so-called international law. That's the same man. I mean, we don't have to talk about Trump for this. This is just the way that the empire rolls. Those laws are inconvenient, so fuck them.
Yeah, they make us look bad and they stop us from the things that we want to do, like have regional hegemony and
Try and do a little Guantanamo Bay. Niggas is tripping.
yeah, I mean, it really is ridiculous when you look at it, especially when everyone knows that the United States and Israel are 3 years deep into one of the most horrifying G-sides the modern world has ever seen, the contemporary world has ever seen. And they continue to get up there like, oh, what do you mean we didn't do nothing? They saying that we doing something, but we're not doing nothing. Like, dude, we know that you guys are doing something. It's pretty most. I know they just released the archive of all the videos from Palestine, but what the Israelis have done, so that can remain there forever, and there will never be an ability to deny that. So essentially, that's what this is still about: the war in Iran, the war in Lebanon, the conflicts over here. I mean, it's just all about the Levant, the creation of Greater Israel, and the inability to do that as long as Palestinians are there. Let's give a shout out to our podcast listeners, guys. Are available everywhere you find podcasts: Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Pocket Cast, all that good stuff. Fables, Foibles, Other American Sins. You see it right behind me. Pick it up. Throw it in your library. It's good for you. It's going to make you love poetry even more. And InnerCityLeft.com. Got the merch store going. I got my little new shirt, my new Inner City Left shirt. I don't know if you see that right there. With the tanky sleeve. Quite nice. I'll throw the link in the description. I know people have been asking for it. More to come. Patreon.com/InnerCityLeft. We got free subscriptions as little as $5. Come say hello. TMK everywhere you find music. Lil Tanky everywhere you find music. Inner City Left on Instagram. Get daily updates. We update 2 or 3 times a day. So stay involved. We can't talk about everything on the broadcast, but we can't talk about it on the Instagram.
As we said, the algorithm is hating like shit, yo. So if you made it to the end, show a little bit of love, throw up a little star in the comments, you know what I'm saying? Just anything, let us know you made it out there. Because look, man, we get it. This stuff is heavy, but geopolitics is what you need to really understand what's happening in the world. And we try to break it down in the simplest terms, but bring you the stories that really will have relevance and meaning to the way that your life lives. And we should care about these things.
Yeah, and if you're not on YouTube and you can't comment, you can usually rate us on Spotify if that's what you use, or I think Apple, you can do it as well. Anyway, TMK everywhere you find music. Lil Tanky everywhere you find music. I hope that there's peace in the world one day. I hope that good things happen. I hope that is the nature of the future, but I don't think it's going to be, and we're going to continue to cover these difficult subjects that need to be covered, and we're going to do it in a jolly fashion if we have to.
Until that day, train your tribe. Be prepared for all situations.
Yeah. For Amoja Lil Tanky Summer, I'm TMK. This is the Inner City Left broadcast. Peace.
System riding to the core. Yeah. Reppin' Inner City Left.